Winging his way above the clouds aboard his private 727 a few days after the turn of the century, Donald Trump told a small group of journalists traveling with him that he was thinking about running for president. He mused about what it would cost, and then he said this: "It's very possible that I could be the first presidential candidate to run and make money on it." On his long road to the White House, Trump's campaign did indeed make money for the Trump business empire, more than $8 million. The biggest ticket was his plane. The Trump campaign paid more than $6 million to a company called Tag Air for the use of the 757 jet. Tag Air is owned by Donald Trump. The campaign also leased office space for its headquarters here at Trump's Fifth Avenue building, Trump Tower. It rented space for campaign events at Trump hotels, such as the Mar-a-Lago Resort, and it paid for catering. Trump didn't make a profit on the campaign, far from it. But what he did do was demonstrate an unprecedented knack for what's called self-dealing, making campaign spending decisions that also benefited his private business interests. And that gets more worrisome as he gets closer to taking office, because he's demonstrated a pattern that whenever he faces conflicts of interest, he simply ignores them.
Trump is aware that he, in fact, is a walking conflict of interest.
There is no one who has spent more time documenting the private wheelings and dealings of Donald Trump than Pulitzer Prize winner David K. Johnson. He began digging into Trump's affairs nearly 30 years ago. His book, The Making of Donald Trump, is a catalog of Trump's successes and failures, his ties to politicians, union leaders, and organized crime figures, his tax filings and lawsuits. Trump has cultivated a reputation as a political outsider, but the truth is, he's depended on political influence to get public money for his private interests throughout his career.
His first major deal was to rebuild a derelict hotel, the Commodore, that was next to Grand Central Station in Manhattan. He turned it into a Grand Hyatt. It was about a $100 million project, all borrowed money, and Donald got $400 million of welfare from the city of New York, the first time a project like that ever got city government welfare.
The welfare was a 40-year tax abatement on the hotel. That wasn't a conflict of interest so much as a lesson about how close the world of politics can be to the world of business. And the two worlds have never been closer for him than they are now.
I have Ivanka and Eric and Don sitting there.
Trump has since said his two sons will manage his businesses and that they will make no new deals while he's president.
So you'll put your assets in a blind trust?
I would put it in a blind trust. Well, I don't know if it's a blind trust if Ivanka, Don, and Eric run it, but is that a blind trust? I don't know.
The answer to that question is absolutely and unequivocally no. A trust run by his children is not blind.
Anybody who deals with conflict of interest will tell you that that's no remedy for the conflicts he's in.
Andrew Stark is a political scientist at the University of Toronto who writes about conflicts of interest in Canadian and American public life. Here's what he says is wrong with Trump's idea about how to handle conflicts.
He will still know what his holdings are, and he will still have them. So any decision he might make, whether it's in foreign policy or a variety of regulatory issues, he will make knowing that it could affect, that his decisions could advance or harm his interests in some way.
The leader of the opposition may not believe in openness and transparency, but Canadians do, and so do I.
Canada's multi-millionaire Prime Minister Paul Martin faced similar questions when running for the party's leadership in 2003.
Why does the Prime Minister try to hide this issue until after the next election from the Canadian people?
He owned several businesses, a shipping company, transportation and real estate holdings, etc. And to avoid conflicts with his public responsibilities, he handed them all over to his three sons. But here's what's different about that.
Early in January, I asked the Ethics Commissioner to, in consultation with a group of outside experts, to prepare a set of recommendations that would apply to me if, in fact, I became Prime Minister.
The Ethics Commissioner at the time required that Prime Minister Martin recuse himself, that means disassociate himself from any policy decisions that would affect his Canada Steamship, which was his company, and that included shipping policy, St. Lawrence Sea policy, other kinds of policies like that.
I think Mr. Martin has to divest himself of these interests. It is not possible to serve two masters.
You know, does he really care about being Prime Minister? Or does he care more about his ships and his boats and his toys?
The President of the United States, though, for constitutional reasons, can't recuse himself from any policy decision. He is the executive branch in the Constitution. He couldn't do what Paul Martin did here and hand those decisions off to another cabinet minister.
Here are just a few of the potential conflicts Trump faces. The new Trump Hotel in Washington, D.C. It's in the historic old post office building, which is owned by the federal government. The Trump Hotel has a 60-year lease with the government's General Services Administration. The lease explicitly and deliberately excludes any government officials from having a share in the property or benefiting from it in any way. Deutsche Bank. The bank has been one of Trump's main creditors for 20 years. It has lent roughly $3 billion to Trump businesses over that period. The bank is in negotiation with the U.S. Justice Department over how to resolve allegedly predatory lending practices leading up to the 2008 financial crisis. President Trump will make appointments to the Justice Department, which could influence those negotiations. Recently, Trump broke with years of diplomatic protocol when he accepted a phone call from the president of Taiwan, something reportedly arranged months in advance. That courtesy call came while local Taiwanese officials said Trump's hotel businesses were exploring expansion into their country. Trump has properties in many countries, including India, Turkey, the Philippines, and others, where there is potential for conflicts with U.S. foreign policy. Personal security. Trump's Secret Service detail presents the potential for conflict whenever Trump stays at a hotel or resort he owns. If his security people stay there too, Trump's hotels will benefit at taxpayers' expense. The Trump name. The president can be exempt from laws that prevent other public officials from profiting from the use of their name. But those exemptions weren't written with someone like Trump in mind.
They weren't contemplating somebody whose name was brought him such vast wealth by branding everything from perfumes to hotels to golf courses.
He would have to give up using his name for his businesses, says Stark.
Unheard of, and it can be done. I'm sure it would be painful for him, but again, this is the office he sought, and that would be the appropriate way of dealing with the issues that he faces.
At the moment, Trump's assertion that he won't discuss his businesses with the children he intends will run them requires a large element of trust. And Trump's proved many times that he's not a man to be trusted, says Johnston.
Given Donald's long history of cheating his own workers, of cheating vendors, of being accused of swindling investors whom he settled with then on confidential terms, there's no reason to trust anything that Donald Trump does or says at any time. And politicians who rely on his word, I think, may come to rue the day they did so.
Both Johnston and Stark agree there is only one way he can truly avoid conflicts of interest. They say he must hand everything to an independent trustee who must then sell the businesses and put the proceeds into a truly blind trust so that even Trump doesn't know what he owns anymore. And that would be the best thing for Trump too, they say, because otherwise Trump will be vulnerable to attacks from his political opponents and possibly even impeachment.
And if he does not do this, I think he's putting himself at risk. I'm not sure that Donald understands that he is handing potential opponents of his presidency, who could well be the Republican leadership on Capitol Hill, given his erratic behavior, a cudgel to go after with him under the emoluments clause of the U.S. Constitution, which says that a president cannot receive anything, not even a gift, from any foreign state, king, etc. So it's actually in his own interests to liquidate everything, but the likelihood that he will do that, very small. And as my wife reminds me now and then, hubris will get you every time.
That may sound like too fantastic a thing to believe, but Trump has already proved an extraordinarily unusual political story. Keith Bogue, CBC News, Washington.